Hello, everyone, and welcome to October's Dynamic Dialogue. I got waylaid in September with COVID, so that one kind of went by the way, but I'm back doing these, and I'll be doing it this month and in November. The November will be after the Thanksgiving holiday, so the Tuesday after that, which I believe is like the 28th. So look forward to that, and we're going to be talking about what's to be in store for supply chains in 2024. So that's probably one you don't want to miss. But today I'm going to talk about Lean and Six Sigma and why those are worth the effort in supply chain. We often associate Lean and especially Six Sigma with the manufacturing end of the business and don't think that it can really apply across the board. But it can, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the basic principles of Lean and Six Sigma and show you what some of the benefits that companies are getting out of this when they go to the trouble to train their staff and get it implemented. So let's dive right in with that. This is our Dynamic Dialogue Forum, fourth Tuesday of the month at noon, and we're going to keep going through 2024 with the monthly format. So I like this little cartoon. I like Dilbert every once in a while, and I think he's kind of good to share. So here comes the big bad boss, and he says, I just read this great book about how to lean our business processes. He says, everybody's doing it. We'd better jump under the bandwagon before the train leaves the station. You know how he talks. I'm putting you in charge. And if you need any management support, you know where to go. And Dilbert can't do anything except get hot and maybe say a few things to himself that we've all mumbled once or twice. So lean is something that pops up and companies say, oh yeah, we're going to be lean. We're going to be Six Sigma. We're going to do all this. And then you start looking at it and you say, whoa, that's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. We're not sure how to do this. So, well, it was a good idea and it looks good when other people do it, but maybe it's just not right for our business. But it probably is right for your business in many ways. So let's look at a couple of those. So let's look first at lean. Lean and Six Sigma both are kind of offshoots of the Toyota production system. So by themselves, they're standalone good practice types things. And Six Sigma has its roots in statistics and quality control. But put together in the Toyota production system, they were powerful tools that they applied to many aspects of business, not just the manufacturing aspects of that. So that because it comes from the Toyota production system, there are a lot of Japanese words that get thrown around and used, and maybe you're familiar with some of these and maybe you're not. So I created this little cheat sheet to show you what some of these words are in case you hear them out and about or somebody's talking about that. One of the key words in Lean and Six Sigma is waste. And in Japanese, that word is muda. So that is bad. Muda is bad. And waste is bad. We don't want to be wasting. We want that value add and the value to come out and not be surrounded by a lot of waste. Another really common term is Kaizen. This term means changing for good or continuous improvement. So Kaizen is used as a verb to be changing and be improving, but it's also used as a noun when it says this is an activity that we're going to perform. So Kaizens can be done. They're typically short, less than a day type thing where you get a concentrated number of people, small number of people, maybe 4 to 6 or 7, and you improve an area. So you get some subject matter experts, you get some other oversight, maybe management, maybe not, but maybe a technical person, maybe a financial person, some other stakeholder, and you review the process and you say, how can we change this and make this better? So these are not long-term, let's go automate this and we're going to buy this piece of equipment and we're going to do all these things. It's what can we do today, tomorrow? So sometimes it results in we're going to buy a new tool or we're going to make a new fixture for something that might take a couple of days, or we're going to add a shelf here. So we need something, change the size of the workstation table or something. But it's not something that is done with the idea of huge wholesale improvements. It's really what can we do better quickly to make this thing work. So those events are called, they're kind of blitz events, and they're called Kaizens. And many companies do those routinely for different areas of the business. And it can be in a production environment, but it can also be an office environment. Like, how do we get these supplier invoices paid more quickly? Let's do a Kaizen on that. Where do they come in? How do they get handled? How many times do they get handled? Where's the inbox? Where's the outbox? Where's the mechanism, and what's the approval chain? So you can do all that within a couple of hours and really come up with some market improvements for the business. Kanban is a pretty common term. It's a signal. It's usually in a factory environment, it's usually kind of laminated and maybe bright colors like bright green or bright pink, something like that, bright blue, so that it stands out, people recognize it. It's a visual signal that says either we need more work over here, or we're about to need more work, or this batch is almost finished and is going to need to be moved to the next station. So it tells you how to move things that we're going to need to be replenished. We need some more product at this station or in this bin, and then it also tells you that it's ready to move to the next step. Poka-yoke is error proofing. One of my favorite examples of this is at the ATM machine. If you've ever left your card in the ATM machine because you're in a hurry to get the money and you forget about your card that you have to put in. So the machine that I use most often, you put your machine in, you punch your numbers and do all that. And then it gives you your card back, and it won't even give you the money until you take your card. If you don't take the card right away, it starts beeping. So it tells you, hey, quit looking at the money slot and take the card, and you'll get your money after that. So some do that simultaneously, both give you the money and beep at you to take the card. But the one I use doesn't even give you the money until you take the card back from the machine. Another example is seatbelt beepers that go off. That tells you, especially if you have children who are sitting in the back, and learn how to undo their seatbelt. So once you get them all locked in and belted up, then they decide that I don't like this. I'm going to take it off. And you start the car and it says beep, beep, beep. Somebody's got their seatbelt off. So that is another way to do that. So there's lots of error proofing type things, circuit boxes, circuit breakers that when you have a problem, it throws the switch in the circuit breaker so it doesn't blow everything up or let that current get back farther than it needs to. It just stops. So then you have to go reset that. In the olden days, you used to put a new fuse in, but nowadays you just flip the breaker and you're good to go. Muri means to overburden, and that applies to both people and machines. So when there's too much there and they can't find their way out, sometimes I feel like that at home, but I don't know that there's any help for that in my home life. Mura is an inconsistency. And so if you're into quality, you want consistent, easily repeatable, reliable, dependable. And Mura says it's inconsistent, and that's not a good thing. Gemba is a place, and a Gemba walk is what I learned years ago as a manufacturing engineer. The best bosses I worked with did what was not called a Gemba walk, but they did their morning walk. Every morning they would check a few things, and within the first half hour of work, they would be down on the floor, walking through the factory, checking out what's working, what's not, what's going well, what isn't, and talking to people. Didn't take a long time. They never spent more than 15, probably 20 minutes doing it. The factory was able to be walked in that much time, and they got a good sense of what was going on. So that's a good thing to do. Kata is the form or the order of doing things, and it also relates to process adherence. So making sure that people are doing things in the right order. Genchi Genbutsu is go see for yourself. And this is a really good thing. When I managed office workers like production planners and purchasing agents, I would say, get out and go see. I would tell the engineers I worked with, come out to the floor and check this out. Don't just sit in your office and expect that you know everything. Go actually look and see how it goes together and what's going well and what's not. And then finally, Obeya is a conference room, a large room, or an arena for broad and deep discussion. So you can have an Obeya in a smaller room if you're going to dive deep into a topic. So those are just some Japanese terms you might be familiar with and some you might not. So the other one of the principles of lean is 5S, and sometimes now it's been looked at as 6S. And so these elements need to be done in order, and they target the waste in the area. So my other analogy to this is Marie Kondo, who wrote a book a few years ago called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And so she was very big on saying, if you don't use things, eliminate them, get rid of the clutter, move things out of your home, make it very minimalist. So you can go too far with that, but I think all of us at one time or another can use a little bit of that, a little more of that in our lives to sort through things and get through the end of that. For those of you who know me, I teach a couple of college classes, and always at the end of the semester, I'm like inundated with test papers and papers to grade and books and all kinds of things. And so it's like, all right, as soon as the semester is over and I can get the grades submitted, then it's like clean this up and go through and move these things, store them if you're going to store them, and recycle papers if you're going to recycle them, and do what you're going to do with them so that it's clean and ready to start for the next semester. So I'll walk through these kind of quickly. The first one is to sort, which really, again, they've assigned English words to these Japanese words because people like me can't really very well remember the Japanese words, and they don't resonate with us. So they're not exact translations, but they're close enough that you should be able to memorize the English versions and think about what you're going to do in these steps. The first one is to sort. So that's reducing the clutter, putting things in bundles or in buckets, what's non-essential, what is essential to the workspace, what is used occasionally, so we need this around, but we don't necessarily use it every day. So we want to make it handy, but we don't have to take up space on the workstation because we don't use it every day. And then what is clutter? What are things that just are getting in the way? Those extra paper clips that kind of just end up on your desk, and those extra things in your closet that no longer fit or that are torn and you're not getting fixed. The shoes that you wore out and think about getting new soles on. So this applies not only to workspaces, but also to your home. And I think that the more you use them, the more they become habits. The second one is to straighten or to set in order. So my grandmother used to say, there's a place for everything, and put everything in its place. So it was getting all these things cleaned up and organized. So once you separate essential and non-essential, clutter and trash from the things we need occasionally, then you're going to say, okay, what's the right order for these? What does my desk need to look like? If you're at a workstation, what does the workstation need to look like? Where do I want my scissors? Is there another tool that I use here? Does it need to be in the front or the back? Is it up above? And how high do I need to go? In your desk at home, it's where does the computer go? Where does your extra monitor go? Maybe if you have a microphone or a mouse or a printer, where are those things in relation to all that? Where's the right place to put those? And that little tin of, or little basket or box of paper clips that you have on your desk that you use occasionally, where does that need to be so that you can get to it when you need it, but also be able to put paper clips back and get things organized? And do you need that stapler, or do you want to put it in the desk and just pull it out when you need it? There were times when I worked where I needed staplers practically every day, but these days, not so much. So they usually go in the drawer, and then I know where it is when I need to pull it out. So after you do these things, the third one is to sweep or shine or clean. And I've had a lot of people say, why don't we clean first? And the rationale is that if you start cleaning before you've removed the clutter and the things that you don't need, or you've figured out where the right thing is, you're just pushing things around. And when you do minimize and figure out what's essential, get the right order for things, then if you clean and put things back where they're supposed to be, anything that's not there becomes a lot more obvious. And then you start to see things like maybe paint drips or oil drips or things like that. And if things that don't have a place that you maybe forgot about. So those are good things to do. And this is also where you start to see some shadow boards, and I'll show you those in a minute. But you sweep and shine and clean in the middle of this process. Then the idea is to standardize everything. So if this works on my desk, it might work on somebody else's desk. If this works on this station in the production line, it might work on another station in the production line. And if you have very differing stations, then each one of these needs to go through this 5S process. But sometimes you have multiple production lines. So if so, then the second station is all pretty much the same in all lines. Then make sure that all second stations look pretty much the same. And that helps workers when they're moving in between lines. That helps train people more quickly. That standardization is a really important part of that common approach and really getting things easily understood by lots of people. And then the final one is often the hardest, which is to sustain. So I talked to lots of people who have a closet, a garage, a junk drawer, and you finally break down and you say, okay, I'm going to clean out this closet. I'm going to clean out this junk drawer. I'm going to do this. We're going to get the garage straightened up. And you do, and you spend some time doing it. It feels good, looks great, and you're happy about that. And then 3 months later, you open that junk drawer or go into that closet for something, or maybe walk out into the garage and say, and it suddenly hits you that, oh my gosh, it's not, I lost it. I had it neat, I had it organized, and it's not like that. So then you have to say, okay, why did it erode like that? And why isn't it as clean as it was 3 months ago or when I first did it? So maybe there was a change in what you did and you needed to make some changes. And so you go back through the 5 S's to see, did I get the right non-essential items? Did I get it set in the right order? And then is it standardized properly? If it isn't, then you have to say, okay, how do I make it easier for me to do that? Because that's really what we want to do, is to be able to sustain that and keep that day after day after day, or something that, okay, I missed today, but I can readily get it back in order and put it where it belongs, so that you keep your productivity high in your factory, you keep your workstations clean and neat and available for people to work in. Now, there is a 6th S that I see sometimes in some of the literature, and it's for safety. So I don't know if there's a Japanese word for that or if it does start with an S, but safety is one of those things that it's really important in all factories. And some people argue that safety is actually built into these other steps. So if you feel that way, then you just have to make sure you emphasize the safety throughout the process. And if you think it could use some extra emphasis, you can add that on as the 6th S. Lean values are really about looking at things from the customer perspectives. So we want to be the patient and think about, okay, how do we want to be treated? If we're the customer, the patient, what works for us and how do we get here? So some of the ways to think about that is to consider the 5 M's and the 1 E. The 5 M's have to do, and they're easier to remember with these M's. They don't necessarily mean these exactly, but the first M starts for man. So that's people. We need people, and lean values are that people are our biggest asset. We need subject matter experts, the people that actually do the job day in and day out, know it the best, are the closest to it. Those are the people that are going to help you get improvements in that area. So whether it's, the gender doesn't matter, the sex and the anything else, if it has to do with human inputs in a thing, that's what we're looking at. The second one is material, and that's materials that we use that we're actually building things with. It's the materials that we use in the tooling, in the fixtures, anything that it has a material kind of connotation, that's what we want to look at. The third M is machine. So it can be a machine itself. It can be a piece of equipment. It can be a tool. Anything that's related to that is the area that you want to consider. The fourth one is method. So we're looking at the processes, the approach, the techniques, the actual process itself, the methodology that we use. And so that is something to consider, because the value there is that processes are very valuable, but we want them simple, straightforward, easy to follow, easy to understand, easy to remember, and then simple is better. Finally, the last M is measurement or metric. So how are we going to measure this? How do we know where we started? So how can we baseline it? And then how do we know what we improve? And these are not in this order. So these are all of the elements to consider, and you have to figure out where you start. Sometimes you start with a measurement. Sometimes you start with a methodology. And sometimes you start with the E, which is the environment and the situation that you're in. So you have to consider all of the 5 M's and the E. And another lean value is really using cross-functional teams. We can have really good engineers, we can have really smart production people, we can have really good financial people, marketing people, planners, suppliers, whatever, but use cross-functional approach to get the best result from that. So get many stakeholders involved. It doesn't have to be dozens. In fact, it shouldn't be dozens, but a few key people that are cross-functionally looking at things from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different needs and uses, you can get much better results that way. So here's the 8 wastes. Sometimes there are 7 you'll see, and there's some different numbers, but this one, I happen to use the 8 because it uses the underused talent, which is a big waste, in my opinion, when you have people that can be contributing more and they're not able to do that because of your system, your process, your hierarchy, your bureaucracy, because you don't have the recognition processes or whatever. So underused talent is a waste. If you've got people that can do more, contribute more, figure out how to allow that to happen and tap into that. Defects of any kind are a waste. So not just bad products, but poor documentation, for example, lack of process controls, anything that's improperly maintained in terms of tools, equipment, machinery, and then errors like incorrect inventory balances or incorrect pricing. All those are defects, and all those cause waste in the workplace. Excess processing. So how many times are we handling things? How many times are we moving things? How many people are handling this? And can we reduce that? What's really the value add? Do we have a process for approving purchase orders that takes 6 people when we could maybe get it down to 4? So what do we want to do with this? And how can we make this the best for our business? Overproduction. So if we're producing more than we can sell readily, then that's not a good thing. If we're creating excess inventory or excess finished goods, or things that we're going to have to put on sale later, or in the food or case of expiration businesses, then things that we're going to have to throw away, that's not good. So we don't want to overproduce. Any kind of waiting, I'm impatient myself, and waiting drives me nuts. I went to the doctor in the last couple of weeks, and I had an appointment at 11:15. I'm supposed to be there at 11 o'clock to sign this paper or do the paperwork or whatever. I'm there at 11:02. I get the paperwork done. I sit and I sit and I sit. So my 11:15 appointment turned into about a 12:15 appointment. So none of us like to wait, and we know that that kind of goes with the territory at doctors. But if we don't have to do that, it's a much better thing. If they could figure out how to keep you from waiting in a doctor's office, I know we'd all be grateful for that. Excess inventory is not a good thing. So lean is about getting the right amount. It's the Goldilocks principle, I say, not too much, not too little. So for inventory, a lot of companies got caught at the beginning of the pandemic, almost 4 years ago now, when they had lean inventories, and they thought that was a good thing, and they ran out very quickly or too quickly, and they were scrambling trying to find more. So you don't necessarily want to have bare bones inventory, but you don't want to have, let's keep 6 months on hand just because. No, you want to be in the middle of that and find out what works for your business and keep that amount. Any extra movement, motion, they talk about 2 things here, transportation and motion. Transportation regarding movement, usually of goods or equipment, tools, things like that. And then motion or motion refers to materials, people, some of the equipment there too. So how do we limit that? We want to not have waste in those areas. It doesn't mean we don't want to do that. Lean inventory doesn't mean zero inventory. It just means that I don't have a lot of excess. So all of these kind of build on that excess processing, overproduction, making sure the things are good so that you can count on those without defects. And then how often and how far am I moving things around? When we look at lean, we look at the value that we're trying to derive from the process or deliver to the customers through the process or the good. Value stream mapping, flow charts, all those are good lean principles. Pull versus push systems. So pull is more make to order, push is more make to stock, if you're more familiar with those terms. Looking at what the demand signals are and being flexible and able to ramp up quickly or to ramp down quickly. So if we have a push system and we continue to push even when demand drops off, then we're overproducing. If we have a pull system, then we're looking for, does the demand signal match what we're producing? And if it does, we march on. And if it doesn't, then we make some adjustments. And can we slow down or speed up a little bit pretty readily? And so a lot of companies have hybrid push-pull configurations. We're going to have raw material, but we're not going to make finished goods, or we're going to make some sub-assemblies, but we're going to hold off on the finished goods till we get some of the orders so that we don't put that last bit of material and labor into the cost. We'll hold it as sub-assemblies, which is lower cost work in process, or even back into inventory as a sub-assembly raw material. And we can manage our costs and still be able to satisfy customer demand. And we have to keep in mind that the lean is not about perfection. It is about a culture of continuous improvement and moving through things as quickly as we can and as cleanly as we can. Not too much, not too little. Find the just right. So some of the traits of lean organizations, we're looking at accountability, how we can lead by example for management. Respect is a big one. Being able to adapt, as I said, flex up, flex down, move, change products, handle a hot order quickly, raise issues candidly. So we want safe space. We want honest assessment. We want people to be able to stop the line. So we want employee empowerment so they can talk to their managers and talk to the designers and the engineers and say, you know, this isn't working, or this is too hard. If you did this and this and this, it would be easier. I would make fewer mistakes and I could do it more quickly. And then balancing the strategic with the tactical, which is always a tough thing to do. How high do we go to be strategic? And then how deep do we go to get into the technical piece? And where do we really need to be in all of this? So lean organizations consider all of these things. So here's a couple examples of some lean tools. Here's a Kanban board that really has the flow, what's requested, what's in process, what's done. Here's some shadow boards. So these are pretty familiar. Some of you might have some semblance of these in your garage, where here in this case, these are for cleaning stations. So you can see the mop, the dustpan, the broom, sometimes the bucket, where all these things go. It's important to know, and they go back every time so you don't lose it. And the one on the right shows that you've got a little place where you can hang your spray bottle. So you fill up your spray bottle and you put it away for the evening so that tomorrow when you come in, it's ready to go and full. Here's one for some wrenches and some pliers and some different tools. There's some, it looks like there's some vice grips maybe in there, and maybe a C-clamp or two. So there's some different tools, and it tells you, okay, these are where the tools go. And as in this one, it's very apparent when something's not there. So in this case, none of the things are there, but when at the end of the day, you put everything back and it should all be there. So it's easy to see if there's anything missing. And in this case, the same way, you've got the nice foam cut out and every tool has a spot. And when it's not there, it's easy to see, oh, we didn't put it back. Where is it? Let's go find it before tomorrow. We don't want to just say, oh, we'll get it later. No, let's go find it and put it back and make sure it's in the right place. So that's lean. Six Sigma is a lot more about statistics. And so I know people love statistics, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But these are the normal curves. And you can see one is kind of flat and broad. The other one is a little more narrow and taller. So, but they're still that bell curve shape. And that's what we're looking for. So many things in the world are bell curves, and we're assuming that that is right. And that's what we need as a premise and a foundation for Six Sigma. Six Sigma really means that we would have 3.4 defects out of a million opportunities. So we're looking for the specification limits, which in this case are the red lines on either side. We want to be well within those specification limits, but we also want to be, as narrow as we can. So for Six Sigma, we look at 6 standard deviations, because sigma is the mathematical symbol for standard deviations. And Six Sigma really means Six Sigma on either side of the process mean or the average. So we talk about the average, and then we talk about 1 or 2 standard deviations a lot. One standard deviation on both sides of the mean or the average covers about 68% of the values in that area. If you get to 2 sigma, you're up to 95%, which is a pretty healthy area. So if you're 95% good in a lot of areas, that won't be a problem. But if you can go that extra mile to get to the 3 sigma on either side, it becomes 99.7% of the values under the curve, which should be the good values. So that's a very good thing. And if you look at this particular drawing with the lower limit and the upper limit, this process average is right there in the middle of that, and you're in good shape. So if you had this kind of a graph from your process at work, you'd be very happy and not have a lot to worry about. So 3 sigma, again, on each side is going to be 99.7% of the values, which for many, many things is more than adequate for what you need to produce on a regular basis. Keep your costs low, make your money, have a few defects, fix those as you go, but still be in good shape as a business. But other things we don't want to leave to chance, like, at all. So then we go to the Six Sigma area. And in this case, you can see we're getting more and more. It equates to 3.4 defects per million opportunities. So it says you don't actually have to make a million of them to do the statistical analysis that does this. And it is a lot of work, and the statistics kind of make people's heads swim and give them headaches. So don't worry about that. There's probably somebody in your company that can help you do that and make those calculations. You can do that, a lot of that in Excel these days, and a lot of other programs that will help you understand where you are and make sure that you're doing a good job in coverage of what you need to be and at the quality level that you need to be at. We do this through X-bar and R charts. X-bar charts are around the average, and the R-bar charts are around the range. So you take a sample size, you take the average of that sample size, you plot that in an X-bar chart, and then you, over time, and then you do some calculations, calculating an upper control limit, a lower control limit, determine what the control of your process is. And then you monitor to make sure you stay within those control limits. And you make sure that those process control limits are within your specification limits, because if they're not, you're going to have a problem. And then when that same sample that you take, maybe you take a sample of 8 out of a lot of 1,000. You look at the high value, the low value, you take the difference, and that's the range. So you range from this level to this level, and you plot the range, and they tell you different things. So it's good to do both the X-bar chart and the R-bar chart. P and C charts are a little easier to understand. They're more about counting. So P charts are percentages, they're counts, and it's shown in percentages or proportions. In this case, on the axis, you'll see 0.01, which is 1%, 2%, 3%. So you calculate it that way. And the C charts are just the raw count numbers. So it's a little bit covered up, but it goes from 5 to 10 to on up a little bit. You still can calculate upper control limits, lower control limits. You look at the the average of the counts. You look at the average of the proportion, and you calculate the control limits, and you track it to make sure that you stay in control with your process. DMAIC is the process that we use to go through. Again, it's a defined process. We start with defining the problem, not symptoms. We're looking for a root cause. So we define the problem first. Then we do some measurements around that to figure out what the baseline is, what the ideal is, what the current is, do some Pareto charts and graphs and things, do some analysis to determine the real root cause here. Then we look at the improve stage, and then we go to controlling that. So we do things like in the analyze, we're looking at the failure mode and effects analysis. So some of these things people don't know, and that's okay, but because there's probably quality people that can help you at your business. And one other thing I tell businesses is if you need some help, go to a local university or community college. There's probably some people there that can help you, some professors, some teachers looking for real life examples for their students to work on, and you might get some really free help for that ends up being very seminal for you. So we improve it, do our design of experiments, make our changes, and then we control it. So we improve it, make sure that it's working the way it's supposed to do. And then once we've proven out that our changes are what we desire, then we go put controls in, and we go back and maybe put some SPC charts, some statistical process control charts. We do some monitoring. We've got the metrics that we check on a regular basis, because we've got to make sure that what we changed is sticking. Other tools, we're using 5 whys, and where you ask at least why 5 times. It's like a little child who says, why is the grass green? Well, because of this. Well, why is that? And why is the sky blue? And why is the sky above and not below? And why? So if you've ever been around a little, a youngster, toddler, 3 to about 5, where they can just drive you crazy by keeping that question going, then do this to yourself or to your business, in your business place. It's important to do that. It is a little annoying sometimes, but it can really cause some aha moments. Just-in-time techniques are good. If you don't like the DMAIC model, there's the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or the Plan, Do, Study, Act model. Kanbans are good. Check sheets to help you count. Analyze bottlenecks where you don't have a smooth flow of work. Lots of different things that you can do to try to improve the work. There's lots of certifications that are available. Many companies have their own white and yellow belts, their basic training in these things. And then green belts, which are through a lot of different organizations. You can get these online. You can get these through extension programs. You can get them through full-on universities and classes and community colleges and things like that. Lots of different ways to do that. I have one, I got mine at work, but we partnered with the University of Michigan. So my certification says University of Michigan on it. And I did a work project to earn that green belt. Then black belts and master black belts, where you have lots more statistics than you have in green belts. I worked with a young man not too long ago at a client, and he said, I'd really like to get my green belt or black belt. And what do you think? Should I just go for the black belt? And I said, well, how much of this do you want to do? How much heavy quality work and statistics do you want to do? Maybe you should start with the green belt. Other people I've told, you're already in the middle of this, just go for the black belt. So not everything fits everybody, and not everybody needs this training, but it's important to know when you do need the training to get the right people who have this training and background and expertise. And aside from the belts, you need champions and sponsors in the organization who will say, yes, we need this program. We need this kind of work going on. Let's go employ that and make sure that we're going to pay for this and remove the obstacles and help people achieve the goals and get the results that the business needs and wants. Lots of benefits from Six Sigma and Lean. So it helps you reduce and eliminate errors. It can be errors on purchase orders. It can be errors of putting things together. It can be errors of sending out invoices. It can be lots of different types of errors. If you have errors where you think there's too many and you'd like to reduce that, so that's a good place to apply Lean Six Sigma. It can cut those wastes out. It can reduce and cut the waste out, and that's a good thing for any business. It helps with cost reductions, because when you get rid of the waste and the errors, you get higher productivity, you get higher efficiency, you get lower inventories and fewer defects that you're managing, which frees people up to do other things and do more of the things that they really add value to your business. You create this culture of continuous improvement, which is really hard to measure, but you can feel it. You can see it when you talk to people in an organization. They know that they're doing good things and they want to do better and more. And that's a very cool place to work, which creates, of course, higher employee satisfaction and retention in your business, which is a great thing to have. And when your employees feel that they're doing better work, you're going to get better output, better finished goods, and higher quality services. You're going to have higher customer satisfaction and therefore higher customer loyalty. And that is going to attract better business partners, more and better business partners. And it's going to allow you to better manage your business by strategic planning, doing risk analysis, reducing that risk, having contingency plans in place. And these things all add up to lots of benefits, not just financial, but you're going to get financial benefits. You're going to get benefits in customer service and in manufacturing all across the board. Every organization and function will feel it when you start to implement Lean and Six Sigma. So I always tell my clients, start small. You don't need to boil the ocean. Let's go pick one little area and let's move forward. So here's what we're going to do going forward. In November, we're going to do 2024, a look ahead for supply chains. If you'd like more information about this, you can reach me at jane@purplelink.net, and you can check out our website, which I will apologize for, is woefully out of date, but that's going to get fixed soon. So you can reach out to me on the internet. And I always like to leave people with a strive to thrive. So this is a Bruce Hamilton quote. He calls himself the old lean dude, and he writes a blog that helps people understand both the Toyota production system and Lean and Six Sigma. And he's an interesting guy to Google, and he's got newsletters and things. And so he's written a couple of a guide for lean transformation. He's got some systems, and he says continuous improvement is not about the things you do well. That's work. Continuous improvement is about removing the things that get in the way of your work, the headaches, the things that slow you down. That's what continuous improvement is all about. And that, for anybody, I think has to sound very exciting. Boy, if I could get rid of the things that get in the way of me doing this work, then I could get a lot more work accomplished. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I wish you all a great week and great end of 2023.